Long before the rise of cities, before the empires and dynasties, Morocco was already a cradle of humanity. In the hills of Jebel Irhoud, scientists uncovered remains nearly 300,000 years old, some of the earliest Homo sapiens ever discovered on Earth. These fossils rewrote the story of our origins, showing that Morocco was not at the edge of human history, but at its very center. For thousands of years, early humans here crafted stone tools, hunted across plains, and left behind traces of their lives, simple yet profound marks of survival and identity. Across caves and rocks, art began to appear. Paintings of animals, hunting scenes, and sacred symbols. These were not just drawings, but whispers of belief, ritual, and imagination, echoes of a people seeking meaning in the vast unknown. Before kingdoms, before Islam, before history as we know it, Morocco was already alive with human spirit, a land where some of the first chapters of humanity were written. Long before Rome, long before Islam, Morocco's coast drew the attention of seafaring traders from the east, the Phoenicians. From the 12th century before our era, they sailed westward across the Mediterranean, bringing goods, ideas, and their gods. They built trading posts along Morocco's shores, places where cultures met. One of the oldest was Lixus, near today's Larache. According to legend, this was where Hercules performed his 11th labor, stealing the golden apples of the Hesperides. Here, merchants exchanged salt, fish, and purple dye for gold, ivory, and grain. Morocco was no longer isolated. It had entered a web of trade that stretched from the Levant to the Atlantic. They brought not only commerce, but also religion and art. Their gods, their alphabet, their way of life, all left subtle marks on Morocco's ancient past. Though the Phoenicians vanished, their colonies were stepping stones, a bridge that connected Morocco to the wider world and set the stage for the civilizations yet to come. By the 6th century BCE, the Phoenician trading posts along Morocco's coast had a new master, Carthage, the rising power of North Africa. Carthage extended its influence over Morocco's ports, controlling trade routes and urban centers. Gold, ivory, metals, and exotic goods passed through Moroccan shores into the wider Mediterranean. In Lixus, near today's Larache, Carthaginians built temples, markets, and fortifications. The city became a hub of commerce, faith, and cultural exchange between Amazigh and Carthaginian worlds. This was less conquest than connection. Carthage held Morocco's ports, while Amazigh communities inland stayed free. Trade and alliances tied its shores into the Mediterranean network. From the 6th to the 2nd century BCE, Carthage left its mark on Morocco, a chapter where trade, power, and culture intertwined, long before Rome arrived. After Carthage fell, Rome extended its empire across North Africa. By 40 CE, parts of Morocco were drawn into the Roman world, known as Mauretania Tingitana. Rome brought armies, laws, and architecture. Fortresses and roads stitched Morocco's coast into the vast empire stretching from Britain to Egypt. In Volubilis, near today's Meknes, Rome built grand villas, baths, and temples. Olive oil from Morocco flowed into Roman markets, feeding the empire's hunger for trade. But Rome's hold was not complete. While cities thrived under Roman order, Amazigh tribes in the mountains and deserts kept their independence. From the 1st to the 5th century CE, Morocco stood at the edge of Rome's world, a frontier where empire and freedom met. In the early 5th century CE, the fall of Rome sent shockwaves across the Mediterranean. Out of Iberia came the Vandals, a Germanic people seeking new lands. They crossed the narrow sea and seized towns along Morocco's northern shores, Tangier, Ceuta, and other coastal strongholds. But their control was shallow. The Vandals were raiders more than rulers. They relied on ports, while the Amazigh tribes of the mountains remained free and defiant. Inland, the Amazigh resisted domination, preserving their independence and culture. The Vandals held only the edges of Morocco, never its heart. Their rule in Morocco was brief, a restless chapter of conquest without roots. By the 6th century, a new empire would rise to challenge them, the Byzantines. In the 6th century CE, the Eastern Roman Empire, Byzantium, struck back. From Constantinople, they sailed west to reclaim North Africa from the Vandals. Victorious in war, the Byzantines extended their rule to Morocco's coast. Tangier, Ceuta, and fortified towns once again carried the Roman banner, this time under the Byzantine eagle. They built forts, churches, and outposts, hoping to restore imperial order. Yet their power was thin, stretched across seas and distant from the Amazigh heartland. For the Amazigh, Byzantium was another foreign shadow at the coast. Beyond the mountains and deserts, their independence endured, unbroken. Byzantine Morocco was short-lived. A fragile frontier, it set the stage for the great transformation soon to come, the arrival of Islam. While Rome, the Vandals, and Byzantines clashed for control of Morocco's coasts, the interior told a different story, one of Amazigh independence. From the 5th to the 7th century CE, the highlands and deserts of Morocco were ruled not by foreign empires, but by Amazigh kingdoms and tribes, free, resilient, and deeply rooted in their land. These tribes built their own systems of leadership and justice. Councils of elders governed villages, while warrior chieftains defended the frontiers. Trade routes flourished under Amazigh guidance. Caravans carried salt, gold, and slaves across the Sahara, linking Morocco to distant worlds, West Africa, the Mediterranean, and beyond. Foreign empires controlled Morocco's edges, but they could not pierce its heart. The mountains, deserts, and tribes stood unconquered. In these centuries of independence, the Amazigh forged the identity of Morocco, one that no empire could erase. In the year 682 CE, the Arab general Uqba ibn Nafi led his army across North Africa, reaching as far as the Atlantic Ocean. It was said that he cried out, "If the sea did not stop me, I would have gone further to spread the word of God." But history tells a more complex story. The spread of Islam in Morocco was not immediate, nor was it purely by the sword. The Amazigh tribes of the mountains resisted fiercely. They were independent, proud, and deeply attached to their traditions. Uqba's campaign brought battles and bloodshed, yes, but also the first contact between Arabs and the Amazigh. After Uqba's death, the Arab armies retreated for decades. Islam did not take root through conquest alone. It spread slowly, through trade, intermarriage, and the message itself. Many Amazigh leaders converted, not by force, but by seeing in Islam a faith of unity and justice, one that could unite their scattered tribes. By the early 8th century, Morocco became part of the Umayyad Caliphate, yet remained distinct. The Amazigh would soon rise again, not as conquered people, but as Muslims who claimed Islam as their own, founding dynasties like the Idrisids, who gave Morocco its first Islamic kingdom. Islam in Morocco was not a story of simple conquest. It was a story of resistance, adaptation, and rebirth, where two civilizations met and became one. In the year 788 CE, a man named Idris ibn Abdallah fled from Arabia. He was not just another traveler, he was a descendant of the Prophet Muhammad and a survivor of the Abbasid massacre that sought to erase his entire lineage. Alone and hunted, Idris journeyed west, across Egypt, across the great deserts, until he reached the edge of the known world, Morocco, a land beyond the grasp of the caliphs, a land of mountains and fiercely independent tribes. Among the Amazigh, Idris found not fear, but kinship. They saw in him a man of noble faith and courage, someone who could bring unity to their divided lands. And Idris, in turn, saw in them a people of dignity and strength, guardians of freedom who had resisted empires for centuries. Together, they forged an alliance, not of conquest, but of purpose. Faith met heritage, and from that bond rose the first independent Islamic kingdom in the Maghreb, the Idrisid dynasty. Idris chose a place by two rivers, the Fez and the Jawhar, to build his capital. There, a new city began to rise. Fez, a crossroads of traders, scholars, and believers. Under Idris's guidance, mosques were built, markets flourished, and justice was sought not through power, but through counsel. In Fez, a new Moroccan identity took shape, where Amazigh roots intertwined with Islamic faith, creating a culture of tolerance, learning, and devotion that would shine for centuries. But Idris's dream was short-lived. Before he could see his kingdom fully flourish, he was poisoned, assassinated, most likely by agents of the Abbasid Caliphate, who feared his growing influence. Yet even in death, his vision did not fade. His son, Idris II, born after his father's death, would inherit not only his name, but his mission. Under him, Fez would become one of the greatest centers of Islamic civilization in the West. From exile came a dynasty. From refuge, a civilization. And from faith, a nation was born. Morocco, the land where spirit, resistance, and destiny converged. In the 11th century, amid the shifting sands of the Sahara and the silent desert solitudes, a reform movement took shape. Led by Abdallah ibn Yassin among the Sanhaja tribes of the Western Sahara, this group would become known as the Almoravids, warrior monks with a single purpose: to uphold faith and justice. From rebats and desert encampments they emerged, men of strict discipline and religious fervor. By the mid-11th century, they began to extend their power northwards through Sijil Massa and toward the Maghreb. Under the command of Yusuf ibn Tashfin, they consolidated control of central Morocco around 1054 to 1092 CE. In the year 1062 CE, 454 AH, they founded the city of Marrakesh, choosing a new capital that would serve as a permanent base for their empire. Marrakesh rose from sand and vision. Camel caravans brought goods from the gold rivers of the south. Andalusian craftsmen and Saharan traders converged at its gates. Here, the desert-born movement anchored itself, turning from roaming Rabat to an empire with a capital. Their rule married faith and governance. Mosques went up, schools were established, trade routes were secured. Marrakesh became a flourishing center of culture, commerce, and learning. By the late 11th century, the Almoravids extended their empire into Al-Andalus, and the western Maghreb was under their command. From the desert's silent vigil rose a citadel of power. From devotion and discipline came an empire, and in Marrakesh, the spirit of a new Moroccan age was born. In the early 12th century, among the silent peaks of the Atlas Mountains, a new voice rose, not with a sword, but with a message. His name was Ibn Tumart, a reformer from the Sousse region. He called for a return to the pure essence of faith, to true Tawhid, the oneness of God, and from that word came their name, the Almohads, Al-Muwahidun. His call was a revolution against excess, corruption, and the decline of moral discipline under the Almoravids. In the hidden valleys of Tinmel, he built a movement rooted in faith, learning, and reform, one that would soon shake empires. After Ibn Tumart's death, his disciple Abd al-Mu'min ibn Ali took command. He united the Amazigh tribes from Sousse to Tangier, across Algeria and Tunisia, and in 1147 CE, the Almohads captured Marrakesh, ending Almoravid rule and founding a new empire built on faith and order. Under their rule, Marrakesh became a beacon of learning and architecture. The Kutubiyya Mosque, their masterpiece, stood as a symbol of enlightenment, a harmony of devotion, geometry, and beauty. It was an era where faith and intellect walked hand in hand. The Almohad Empire stretched across the entire Maghreb and into Al-Andalus, ruling Cordoba, Seville, and Granada. They brought stability, prosperity, and a sense of unity between the lands of Africa and Iberia. Theirs was a civilization of the mind. Philosophers like Ibn Rushd, Averroes, Ibn Tufayl, and Ibn Zur shaped the thought of both East and West, merging faith with reason and reason with wonder. But after a century of glory came the fall. In 1212 CE, the Almohads suffered a crushing defeat at Las Navas de Tolosa, marking the slow unraveling of their empire. Yet their legacy did not vanish. It lived on in the architecture, the philosophy, and the spirit of Morocco. From the mountains their faith began. From Marrakesh their light spread, and when their swords fell silent, their wisdom endured. The Almohads were not merely rulers, they were builders of unity, knowledge, and faith. In the heart of Morocco, as the dawn mist rises over the roofs of Fez, echoes of a new dynasty begin to stir. The Almohads have faded into history, and from the plains of Zenata, a new power rises, the Marinids. Born from the Berber tribes, forged by war and vision, they would carry Morocco into a new age, not of conquest, but of knowledge. It was the 13th century. The Almohad Empire was collapsing, torn by internal strife and rebellion. Amid this chaos, the Marinid leader, Abd al-Haq Bru, united his people and took control of northern Morocco. By the year 1248, they captured Fez and made it the beating heart of their new empire. The city would soon glow with light, not the light of swords, but of wisdom. Under Abu Yusuf Yaqub and Abu al-Hasan al-Marini, Fez transformed into one of the most radiant cities of the Islamic world. They built madrasas, schools of theology, law, and philosophy, each more beautiful than the last. The Bu Inania, Al-Atarin, and Saharij madrasas became jewels of Islamic architecture, their walls whispering verses of faith and reason. Here, students from Africa, Andalusia, and the East came to seek knowledge and found a home among the scholars of Fez. Unlike the empires before them, the Marinids sought legitimacy not through holy war, but through scholarship. They preserved the legacy of Al-Andalus, carrying its sciences, poetry, and art into a new Moroccan Renaissance. Their rulers walked among the scholars, and their cities became living libraries, where ink was mightier than steel. In their time, Morocco was not just a kingdom, it was a classroom beneath the stars. Yet time is merciless. By the 15th century, internal rivalries and the rise of new powers, like the Wattasids, weakened the Marinids. Their palaces grew silent, their scholars scattered. But what they left behind, the madrasas, the manuscripts, the marble, became eternal witnesses to an age of enlightenment. Even today, when you walk through Fez, the air still hums with the prayers and questions of those who once sought truth. The Marinids did not build an empire of swords, but of minds. Their legacy was not carved in blood, but written in light. From the 13th to the 15th century, they turned Morocco into a bridge, connecting the spirit of Al-Andalus to the heart of Africa. And in that bridge still lives the soul of Fez, the city where knowledge became eternal. In the early 15th century, Morocco stood at a crossroads. The Marinid star had dimmed, and from the cracks of a fading empire, a fragile new power emerged, the Wattasids. They did not rise with thunder, but with necessity. A dynasty born not from glory, but from survival. Before the Wattasids could even take a full breath, the storm arrived. In 1415, Portuguese ships pierced the Atlantic horizon, their cannons echoing across the coast. Ceuta fell, a scar that would never fully heal. And the young Wattasid state watched the ocean turn into a battlefield. The Wattasids were scholars more than warriors, administrators more than conquerors. But history is unforgiving to the gentle. While they patched the empire together with diplomacy, piracy, and fragile alliances, the world around them grew sharper, filled with European expansion, tribal revolts, and Ottoman ambitions. One by one, Morocco's coastline trembled. Ksar es Sagir, Asila, Tangier, Each carried the echo of a kingdom slipping toward the edge. And in the stillness of Fes, their capital, the Wattassid sultans felt time running through their fingers like sand. By the 16th century, a new force rose from the south, the Saadians, stronger, wealthier, forged by jihad against the Portuguese. And when they marched north, the Wattassid flame finally flickered out, not with defeat, but with exhaustion. The Wattassid dynasty did not shape Morocco with glory, but they held the kingdom together when the world tried to tear it apart. And in the silence of their era, Morocco learned a lesson it would never forget, that even the weakest guardians can protect a nation long enough for the next sunrise to come. At the dawn of the 16th century, Morocco stood divided and vulnerable. Foreign powers circled its shores, and the Wattassid state struggled to hold its ground. But from the valleys of the south came a new force, a family of sharifs known as the Saadians. Their rise would reshape Morocco and restore its pride. United by faith and lineage, the Saadians rallied tribes against the Portuguese threat. With determination and charisma, they reclaimed coastal cities one by one. And when they entered Marrakesh, they carried with them not just strength, but a promise of renewal. But the defining moment came in 1578 at the legendary Battle of the Three Kings. Three monarchs met on the field of Wadi al-Makhazin, and only one survived. The Saadians emerged victorious, defending Morocco from foreign domination, and announcing their arrival as a great power. In the aftermath, a new ruler ascended, Ahmad al-Mansur al-Dahabi, the Golden One, and under his rule, Morocco entered one of the brightest chapters in its history. Al-Mansur transformed Marrakesh into a city of splendor, golden palaces, vibrant gardens, and halls filled with scholars from across the world. Trade flourished across the Sahara, bringing wealth from Timbuktu to the gates of Morocco. The Saadians were not only warriors, they were builders, patrons of science and art. They expanded the Ben Youssef Madrasa, built the stunning Saadian tombs, and strengthened Morocco's standing among the great nations of their time. But like all golden ages, theirs was not eternal. After the death of Al-Mansur in 1603, disputes fractured the dynasty, and slowly the light began to fade. Yet the legacy they left, strength, unity, and beauty, continues to shape Morocco today. From the battlefields of Wadi al-Makhazin to the halls of Marrakesh, the Saadians carved their story in stone and history. A story of resilience, a story of renewal, a story of a Morocco rising to shine once again. By the late 17th century, Morocco stood at a crossroads. Years of division had left the kingdom fragile, a land searching for stability and for a leader who could rebuild what had been lost. From the deep desert valleys of Tafilalet, that leader emerged, the Alaouites. The Alaouite family, descendants of the Prophet Muhammad, rose to prominence in the Saharan trade routes. Respected for their lineage and trusted by tribes who longed for unity, they moved northward, step by step, gathering tribes, calming rivalries, and slowly stitching together the fabric of a fractured land. Then, in the year 1672, a new ruler ascended, Moulay Ismail, the man who would reshape Morocco with iron will and unshakable vision. He chose Meknes as the heart of his dream, a city that would rival the great courts of the world, with towering ramparts, vast granaries, shimmering gardens, and palaces stretching farther than the eye could see. Under his command, walls rose like mountains, gates were carved like poetry, and Meknes transformed into a symbol of a new, unified Morocco. To secure the kingdom, Moulay Ismail built a powerful, loyal army, a force that brought peace to troubled regions, protected trade, and repelled threats along the coasts. For more than 50 years, he worked to bring order to Morocco, centralizing authority, rebuilding cities, and ensuring that the kingdom could stand firm against the rising powers of Europe. Under the Alaouites, trade flourished once more. Caravans from the Sahara brought gold, salt, leather, and manuscripts. Scholars found refuge in Morocco's growing centers of knowledge, and diplomacy strengthened ties across Africa, Europe, and beyond. When Moulay Ismail passed in 1727, he left behind not only an imperial city, but the foundations of a dynasty that still rules Morocco today. From the deserts of Tafilalet to the palaces of Meknes, from fragmented tribes to a unified kingdom, the Alaouites carried Morocco into a new era. A story of endurance, a story of transformation, a story of a nation rising and continuing to rise across the centuries.